Well, let's get more now on this from Professor Jaap de Visser. He's a professor in multi-level government and South African Research Chair in multi-level government at the Dullah Omar Institute. Professor, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. We all know this is going to be difficult. The major parties have also, they're open to coalitions, they're open to starting negotiations. Is that at least a good start?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good to be with you. Yes, I suppose it is a good start, but I think it also shows that we're in uncharted territory. It's a bit of a Mexican standoff where everyone is sort of staring at each other and we're not sure who must make the first move. And, you know, there are some aspects of our constitution that don't serve us very well in this respect, because everything must happen within those 14 days. Normally one would really want coalition negotiations to first be about policy, about the plan for the country, and then about positions. But unfortunately, that's not what the Constitution actually allows. The Constitution forces, actually within 2 weeks, positions to be distributed and a presidential candidate to be negotiated. So it's really a pressure cooker that the Constitution imposes on the coalition negotiators to come up with something that can survive during that first meeting of the National Assembly.
We've seen parties spending the last couple of months being very rude to each other. Now they have to work together. I mean, does that make it harder? I mean, can people really forget what was said about each other on the campaign trail?
Well, you know, politicians are very good at changing, you know, their tune. So I think the politicians will not find it too difficult. But I think the voters will scratch their heads and will wonder what to make of these contradicting messages. But then again, this is also the nature of our politics that we may have to get used to. That in the run-up to the elections, every political party will aim for the highest and will make the other parties look bad. But after the electoral outcome is there, there's a need for pragmatism and for, you know, working together. But at the same time, you cannot alienate your constituency. So it's also very important in this phase, and this may not be something that's very high on the public and on the voters' mind, is very important for this phase that political parties consult internally, that they have internally their ducks in a row and coherence within their political parties on what is the right move in terms of whom to talk to and what the conditions are and what to accept and what not to accept.
Are there ways that other people who are maybe not directly involved could make these negotiations easier? Do we need some wiser people, maybe older, wiser people in the room to help with these discussions a little bit?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is how, you know, the countries, for example, in Western Europe that have been practicing coalitions for decades, if not longer, do it. They always rely on senior former politicians who stand above the parties and who actually work under a mandate of Parliament to consult with each and every political party and seek out a coalition and then assist in the talks. We don't have that kind of convention, and I really think that we need to move towards that. I think for now it's probably a bit too late to have a predetermined procedure, but many of us have been saying this for a long time. We need to be prepared for this. We need to have certain protocols in place that, in my view, that include professional sort of mediators that know how to do this, that know how to bring parties together. Maybe this is happening behind the scenes. I surely hope so, that the political parties are calling upon senior leaders of society and to assist with this. Because I think if we just leave it up to political parties to battle it out in negotiating chambers, it may become even more difficult.
There's a conversation that other role players are having as well, other people in society. So, I mean, investors and business people want the ANC to pick one partner. I suspect that Labour and other groups want the ANC to pick another partner. I'll leave it up to you, Professor, to work out which way they may want to go. Can people outside the political process, so people who are not involved in the negotiations, people who are not members of Parliament, really play a role in this? I mean, there is a lot at stake for many different people in many different directions.
Look, formally, of course not. Formally, it all comes down to the wire in the National Assembly and the votes that will be taken there on the president and the decisions that the president then will make in terms of whom to appoint into his or her cabinet. That's the formal position. But of course, in the negotiations in the run-up to that, anything is possible behind the scenes. What I do think is important, and this you also see in other countries that have been doing this for a long time, that a degree of transparency is necessary. Of course, this needs to take place behind closed doors. You cannot expect political parties to conduct their negotiations through the media, but they will have to adopt some sort of position on giving, a measure of feedback to the public on what the direction is. And if, for example, negotiations collapsed, why they collapsed. Because in the end, the voters are entitled and society is entitled to know what is happening with their votes and what is the direction of the coalition negotiations. But formally, it is the MPs in Parliament that will take the decision.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Jaap de Visser at the Dullah Omar Institute. Really do appreciate the time.